My name's DrIan Robinson. I'm a woodland owner. We're standing at the moment in some woods close to Ringland, and these are woods that will be partially destroyed by the Norwich Western Link.
So tell me what we could see from this point in a few years' time if the road goes ahead.
Well, if we're looking just over here, there would be a dual carriageway coming out of the woodland on your right, crossing over this field, over Ringland Lane, so there would be a flyover there, and then going into the woodland on that ridge, some of which is ancient woodland. So we're walking into an area of woodland now which would be really completely destroyed by the road. I own a section of it over here. The middle part is a relatively new plantation of trees, but it's edged all around by ancient trees. Probably going by their girth, they are around about 430 years old. So we're talking about them being saplings at the time of Elizabeth I, to give it context.
So just in terms of where the road would be, we're in the woodland now. Would the road come through here?
Yeah, we're standing on its centre line here.
This would be the road?
This would be the road, yeah.
So these ancient trees either side of us are just going to have to come down?
They will be lost, yes.
And how do you feel thinking that in 5-10 years' time this could be the middle of a dual carriageway?
I mean, obviously absolutely devastated by that idea, but I think more than that. I mean, the council's own report into the trees on the route talk about ancient trees like this and say that, well, these are features that are extremely difficult to mitigate, and there'll be, as a result of this, a strong adverse impact that will last the lifetime of this road scheme and beyond. So think of this road really as a temporary feature that's going to last here, 100 years, 150 years? The trees there, they could live another 300 years. We are trashing something that we have no right to trash. It should be outliving us. It should be outliving our great-grandchildren, and it should be outliving their great-grandchildren. And it's not going to, because of the short-sightedness of people in County Hall who think they know better.
We've got a cabinet meeting a week on Monday. The full council's being summoned after that. How confident are you that this matter will be debated and scrutinised?
I'm concerned that it's being really railroaded through the council. I think this is being rushed. I think it's been rushed from day one because they want to get it built before anybody realises the tremendous environmental and financial cost it will cause to the county. It's difficult to imagine standing here, to imagine the tarmac, the speed of the vehicles, the noise, the smell of them, the pollution. It feels like a desecration of this really important, unspoilt corner of Norfolk. Yes, I own this little, segment of woodland, but more generally, the Wensum Valley is just enormously special. It's really unspoilt. This is a green lung following the river into Norwich, and sticking a road through here is just a desecration of the area.
That's DrIan Robinson, who owns some of the woodland in the Wensum Valley. He's a member of the Stop the Wensum, Stop the Link group. We've got a couple of guests waiting to talk to us about this. One of those is Emma Corlett, who's deputy leader of the Labour group at County Hall. Emma, good morning to you.
Morning, Chris.
And we've also got Jamie Osborn, who's the deputy leader of the Green group at the County Council, who we'll speak to in a moment. But Emma, with you, it's my understanding that Labour initially backed this and doesn't anymore. Is that the case? And if so, why?
No, I think that you're probably confusing that with the City Council, who aren't the Strategic Transport Authority. Our position since Steve and I have been leader and deputy has been to oppose this road because it is environmentally and financially reckless. There is no environmentally responsible way of delivering this scheme, despite what the paper said. I would share DrIan Robinson's concerns about it being rushed through. We've got a special meeting called for the same afternoon after Cabinet meets to take the decision, which means there's no opportunity for the cross-party scrutiny committee to have a look at this item and make any recommendations back to full council. So I would argue that's not following due process. I think it's also right to raise whether councillors have been given sufficient information to make an informed decision. I was expecting a report of several hundred pages to come out, and it's actually only 45 pages. The reason why I say it's financially as well as environmentally reckless is that, as you've been saying, the cost has already rocketed by £45 million before we even get started. There are risks that can't be mitigated, both in terms of the environment and all infrastructure projects. Costs are going up because raw materials are expensive. There's a difficulty getting the workforce. Our view is that this is simply putting the council at really unsafe financial risk in the coming years.
The council believes there is a real business case for this, though. It thinks Norfolk needs this road.
I'm not convinced by that. I think that there's some claims made that I think warrant very, very close scrutiny. And I think the government and Department for Transport description or criteria for what represents value for money is not fit for the modern world. This is stuck in the 1980s. This is 1980s solutions to the problems, very real problems that we face today.
Jamie Osborn, you're the Deputy Leader of the Green Group at the County Council. The economic impact we've talked about, but the environmental impact that the County Council says it is taking into account and will be able to mitigate it. What would you say to that?
I think there's some very creative accountancy going on actually from the County Council there. I mean, they talk about saying that this road will cut carbon emissions, but because it'll mean less time on the road for cars. But that's just taking the first few months or a couple of years of building the road. Over the 60-year lifetime of the road, the projected lifetime, they're actually going to see many, many more cars on the road, because that's what happens when you build roads. If you build roads, people drive on them. And actually what they're planning to do with this road is to start development over more of the countryside, and sort of dispersed development, where people will be dependent on cars, because all the money is going into building infrastructure for cars and not for public transport or walking and cycling. And so, we've seen it with the Norwich Southern bypass. Once you make road improvements or extend roads, then you start getting more and more traffic. And there's simply no way to square that with the reduction in carbon emissions that we need from transport in Norfolk. Transport is one of our biggest, is the biggest source of emissions in Norfolk, and the Committee on Climate Change, that's the government's official climate change advisory body, says that we need to be cutting transport emissions by 70% in the next couple of decades. And according to the County Council's own figures, which I would actually highly dispute, I think they're a massive underestimation of the carbon emissions, but according to their own figures, there's still going to be a well over nearly 500,000 tonnes of carbon emissions by 2040 with this road being built. So it's just taking us in completely the wrong direction. The
leader of the County Council, Andrew Proctor, said earlier this week that Norfolk is a car county, and I know there are lots of listeners here that would agree with that, Jamie, because they look at public transport options and then they're just not there. So many of our listeners rely on their cars to get around. That's a political choice. The County Council could, instead of spending 200 million, or what we think is probably more likely to end up being 300 or possibly even more £1 million on this road, we need to be investing in public transport and walking and cycling. And the fact is that if there is rat running, if there is car problems, if there are traffic problems, you don't solve that by building more roads. That's what we've tried to do for the last few decades, ever since the 1960s. And that just hasn't solved the traffic problems. In fact, it's only made things worse, because you build more roads, you get more cars, you get more air pollution, you get more carbon emissions, climate destruction, and destruction of wildlife as well, which I think we may want to come on to. And it's a massive waste of public money. That money can be much better spent if you invested instead in public transport and walking and cycling, and in healthy ways of travelling. And that's the direction that the government is saying that councils should take as well. They released a report last year saying that councils should actually be prioritising healthy modes of transport rather than cars. Thank you to Emma Corlett, Deputy Leader of the Labour Group at County Hall, and Jamie Osborn, Deputy Leader of the Green Group on the County Council as well, who have got their concerns about this new Western Link road.